Morant with a running start. Elevate! Dunks! Oh my goodness! Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone! Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it! A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance. Adams going long. Morant! He hit it! Ja Morant, insanity!
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Grizzlies win edition. My name is Keith Parrish. The Grizzlies and Suns played the highest scoring game in Grizzlies franchise history. The Grizzlies won it in overtime, 151-148. Ja Morant came up huge over and over down the stretch. He shook off a rough shooting night to be the hero. Meanwhile, the Grizzlies improved to 22-6. At home. On today's episode, I'm going to talk about this win. There's going to be no ad break in the middle, so pay attention. Anybody who lives near Nashville, our next Grizzlies watch party is going to be this Friday night. The next Grizzlies game. It's a home game against the Knicks on Friday in Nashville. We will be having a watch party over at Noble's Beer Hall. Going to be giving out lots of prizes. Sarah Cravens is going to be hosting this one. She's going to be giving out all the prizes. There's going to be a drink special from Wiseacre. It's going to be a lot of fun to hang out with other Grizzlies fans and cheer on the Grizzlies and get some swag, get some cool stuff. Come on down to Noble's Beer Hall this Friday night for the Knicks-Grizzlies game. So the win over the Suns. 151 points by the Grizzlies. That's the third most points they've ever scored. The 148 points they allowed, that's the most points they've ever allowed in any game. Add that up, you get the highest scoring game in franchise history. Ja Morant caught this alley-oop in the third quarter where he was basically eye level with the rim. It looked like he was blowing a kiss to the rim. Spectacular play. But up until that point, Ja Morant had missed 12 of his 13 field goal attempts. He makes that, then actually commits a couple of really bad turnovers right afterwards. He subs out, and this is something like the third straight game where Ja's first three quarters have been not very good. But much like he did in the fourth quarter against the Magic, much like he tried to do in the fourth quarter against the Cavaliers, Ja Morant saved the best for last. Ja Morant had 15 points in the fourth quarter. He scored the Grizzlies' final 11 points of regulation to force the overtime. He hit some spectacular clutch baskets. His one made three-pointer, he was 1 for 12 on three-pointers in the game. His one make, so when the team was down by 4, it was an off-balance, tough, difficult shot that saved the game for the Grizzlies. Cut a 4-point lead to 1. Then he hits the runner with less than 2 seconds left to send the game to overtime. In overtime, there were a lot of different heroes, like Jalen Wells played a huge role in this game. Jalen Wells played a career-high 40 minutes. He had an overtime three-pointer. He scored on a nice deceleration move in the paint. He also clinched the game essentially with that dunk, although mainly that play was a great pass by Ja Morant. Brandon Clark, who at the end of regulation didn't come through in the clutch like we were accustomed to. I've called Brandon Clark our closer. Well, Brandon missed a couple of very makeable shots in the final minute in regulation. However, he redeemed himself with the go-ahead tip-in. He knocked a Ja Morant shot in that was blocked. He batted it in backwards. An incredible go-ahead shot from Brandon Clark. And then the Grizzlies had just enough defense to pull this one out. They held Kevin Durant to just 2 out of 13 field goal attempts in the second half in overtime. And one of the fun things about this game is just the preposterous statistics. Like, the Suns hit 21 three-pointers on 37 attempts. That's 57%. The Suns as a team shot 54% for the game. In the second half alone, this is second half and overtime, the Suns made 14 out of 19 three-pointers. The Suns were winning at halftime, and then after halftime made 14 out of 19 three-pointers, and yet did not win. How's that possible? Well, the Grizzlies scored 93 points after halftime. That's one way it's possible. The Grizzlies shot 63% as a team after halftime. Overall for the game, I mean, the Grizzlies shooting stats are also really, really good. Their splits as a team, 53, 42, 90. They were 27 for 30 from the line. Ja Morant was 14 for 14 from the line. That's the most makes Ja Morant has ever had in a game without a miss. It's the second most makes any Grizzly has ever had in a game without a miss. The most is 16. Marc Gasol had a 16 for 16 game from the line. So the Grizzlies make 20 out of 48 three-pointers, despite Ja going 1 for 12 from the three-point line. They make 27 out of 30 free throws. And oh, by the way, they score 151 points. Hang on and win. And now the Suns, they've actually lost 9 out of their last 11 games. Now, I said earlier there were a lot of different heroes for this game. Part of that is because Jaren Jackson Jr. fouled out. Jaren, when he played, was tremendous. He made 11 out of his 13 field goal attempts. Jaren had 28 points, 6 rebounds, 2 blocks, a steal, and an assist. He made all 3 of his three-pointers, but Jaren fouls out. This is now the 5th straight game where Jaren has been in foul trouble. And I feel like as Grizzlies fans, we get very defensive about Jaren Jackson Jr. most of the time. The national opinion of him, the casual opinion of him, the criticisms, it's twofold usually. He's a bad rebounder, and he gets in foul trouble. And we like to point out, rebounding is not the primary part of his game. He's one of the best scorers in the NBA. Also, by the way, he's going to make first-team all-defense again. But, all right, he's not a good rebounder, flat out. That's fine. That's true. The foul issue, I think we try to point out that his foul rate is at career lows, and he's getting much, much better, and it's very overstated. He hardly ever fouls out. He's rarely in foul trouble. Well, guess what? That doesn't hold up anymore, really. Jaren has been in dire foul trouble now 5 straight games. And I don't know if there's anything specifically different about those 5 games, but Jaren has been in big-time foul trouble. He finally fouls out of this one. In my Patreon listener Slack, someone was like, I bet Keith is ecstatic that Jaren actually fouled out. Yes, I am. I am ecstatic he fouled out as opposed to finished the game with 5 fouls but only played, 28 minutes or something, which is what happened against the Cavaliers. I would much rather Jaren use up all of his fouls than get to the end of the game and him have 5 or 4 fouls but only play 27 minutes. Jaren fouled out. Maybe with the Grizzlies winning a game, with Jaren Jackson Jr. fouled out, Taylor Jenkins could see that, hey, we can do this without Jaren. If he fouls out in the third quarter, we can handle it. Santi Aldama can come up huge, play big minutes, and be the hero. We can let Zach Edey play in the fourth quarter and play in overtime like he did in this game. By the way, the Grizzlies used both of their rookies in overtime. We know they start both of their rookies, and it's remarkable, frankly, when you look at the history of the NBA, how much they're winning while starting 2 rookies. But usually those guys do not close when the game is tight. Well, the game was tight. They did not go with Vince Williams Jr., who barely played in this game. They went with Jalen Wells, who was awesome. 19 points, 5 out of 7 from the three-point line. They used Zach Edey at times. Now, he didn't finish the final 2 minutes. They did put Brandon Clark in there for the very end of overtime, so Brandon Clark could get that tip in. But like Zach Edey played in the fourth quarter, played in overtime. Zach continues being an absolute monster on the offensive glass. He finished the game overall with 8 points and 8 rebounds. But the Grizzlies won despite no Jaren. And again, A lot of that was Ja put on the Superman cape. Ja was amazing. Finishes, despite the very slow start, finishes with 29 points and 8 assists. Desmond Bane bounced back from maybe his worst shooting game of the year against the Cavaliers. He had 25 points, led the team with 9 assists. He was 5 out of 6 on his 2-pointers, made 3 out of 9 3-pointers. Meanwhile, Santi, absolute monster game. 17 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, made 5 out of 7 3-pointers. So Santi keeps playing great. You got good games from your big three. I mean, they all score at least 25. Desmond with 25, Jaren with 28, Ja Morant with 29, and Grizzlies get the big win. As far as the rest of the rotation, once again, they went 10 deep. No more 11-man rotations since the All-Star break. The only 11-man rotation I believe we've seen is when Gigi Jackson got benched and they went to Scottie Pippen Jr. Gigi did not play much in this game. Gigi played 8 minutes in the first half, was not seen in the second half. This is 2 straight games now where Gigi Jackson has not played at all in the second half. Gigi did get 3 assists, which is good for him. All of the assists were to Santi Aldama. He found an open Santi Aldama just on swing passes or passes around the perimeter. Santi took care of the rest. This was very similar to, I don't know if you saw the Kings game, the Kings-Hornets game where Zach LaVine scored 42 points. Jake LaRavia in that game got, I think, 5 assists, and I'm pretty sure every single one of them was to Zach LaVine. Just keep throwing it to the guy who's unbelievably on fire. You will rack up a lot of assists. But Gigi Jackson has not been trusted with playing time of late. I think there's a balancing act that this team has always done with developing their young players and trying to win. I think at many times there's a frustration with, hey, why is this young guy playing and not this maybe arguably better player? Now, that doesn't happen that much with Gigi Jackson where people say that because people view Gigi Jackson as such a promising young prospect. But right now, where they were maybe force-feeding Gigi minutes a few games ago, now they're not. Now they're saying, no, thank you. Jalen's playing well. We want to get Vince in the game. Luke Kennard's playing well. Santi is awesome. We're playing Santi at the small forward sometimes. And thus, Gigi Jackson has lost some of that playing time. Now, Vince, my guy, Vince Williams, only played 13 minutes in this game. He was out there for a big run in the third quarter, but I kind of expected him to come back in and close this game. Specifically, in the pregame, Taylor Jenkins told the reporters that, Vince Williams' role right now, they're monitoring his minutes closely, but he's there to close games. Those were Taylor Jenkins' words. He also said they're trying to be smart with his minutes, and they're being, conscious of his past injury results and the soreness he's experiencing after games. They got a back-to-back coming up this Friday and Saturday. So they're trying to work him up to playing minutes. And Taylor Jenkins said, there's like a cap on his minutes in the mid-20s. Well, he hasn't played mid-20s. So far, the most he's played in a game is 20 minutes. So I figured he had a 20-minute cap. I figured when he played 6 minutes in the first half, that meant Vince Williams was going to play 14 minutes in the second half. No, he played 7 minutes in the second half, only played 13 minutes. But again, a lot of that's because Jalen Wells was playing so well that Jalen was the guy they chose to close the game. Jalen gets that career-high 40 minutes played. Vince only plays 13. Meanwhile, Luke Kennard played 19 minutes. He scored 6 points, made 2 3-pointers, and had 5 assists. And the Grizzlies, I think, avoid, I won't say a bad loss, but a loss you didn't really want. Like, I found this game delightful. I know a large segment of the fan base lives and dies based on the result, and sometimes I'm like that, but I'm not like that as much anymore. I was able to sit back and enjoy the fact that, both teams shot 70% in the third quarter. Yes, it was frustrating that Grayson Allen was wide open over and over and over and making 3-pointers, but also I was kind of thinking, wow, that's a lot of points. And I kept thinking that for a lot of the game, and there were numerous highlights from everybody. So I was, I guess, able to sit back and be like, this is a really fun game. At the very end, I was frustrated when it looked like the team was going to come up short. I was like, man, I kind of wish we hadn't lost to this team, this Suns team that hardly ever plays defense. Kind of wish we hadn't lost to them. But then, of course, Ja Morant came up huge in the clutch. The Suns themselves did not come up huge in the clutch. There was a bad offensive foul by Grayson Allen. Meanwhile, Kevin Durant couldn't make anything in the second half. And you get what ends up being, I'll say, in retrospect for everyone, I think we can look back and say this was a pretty fun win. And with that, that is all the time I have for today. Again, a reminder, Nashville people, there's going to be a watch party in Nashville at Nobles East this Friday night, 7 p.m. If you want to support my show, if you want to join my listener Slack, if you want a monthly bonus episode, go over to patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right. Hope you guys have a great Wednesday. I'll talk to you soon. Go Grizz.